Monday, June 23rd, 2025, and a lot's going on in the world, and we'll be talking about that and seeing who joins us in this conversation and all along those lines. But there is definitely a lot taking place in the world, and of course, a lot of people are paying attention to a number of the things that are taking place, and we'll be having discussions about that here on this particular network, and I'm sure others are having these same discussions either in their homes or on other networks as well. So definitely a lot is taking place, and we're glad to be here to report to you on some of these things that are going on in the world and around the world. So definitely that is what we're hearing about, and glad to be here with you, and glad to see what folks have got to say about a number of these stories and all along those lines. So like I said, there's a lot taking place, and definitely get to the headlines and hear what's going on, and then we'll see who joins us in this discussion and all along those lines. But the White House says it's confident its strikes hit the targets that it was looking for, and the B 2 bombers from the Iran mission have returned to Missouri. So they're back in Missouri. But some people are saying that Trump's bombing presents a major constitutional and legal questions. And I'm sure that our legal show on Tuesday will be talking about that, and we'll see what happens in that regards. And they are saying, and according to the Washington Post, that a weakened Iran could turn to assassination and terrorism to strike back. So there is some fear that that could happen as well. And it looks like the Texas governor has vetoed a bill that would ban all THC products. So Texas Governor Greg Abbott vetoed a bill Sunday to ban all THC consumables, allowing the booming market flush with THC infused vapes, gummies, and other products to continue to be sold across the state. So that's something going on in Texas. And polls show Trump's big bill is unpopular as GOP stare down their deadline for passage. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about. And Anderson Cooper was forced to take shelter in Israel while live on the air. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about. And oil volatility remains high after the U.S. struck that Iran's nuclear sites and all along those lines. So that is definitely something that people are talking about in the news as well. So definitely that is something that is in the news also. And the judge says the government failed to prove a wrongly deported man poses a danger. And one of the questions that's coming up, and I know Sasha has brought it up and others on this network, is that some folks are wondering, could there be a military draft? Fears are rising after the U.S. bombed Iran that we could be heading back toward a military draft. And as the U.S. braces for Iranian attack, a brain drain weakens its defenses, former officials say. So definitely could be a brain drain over there in Iran and all along those lines. And U.S. Embassy warns Americans in Qatar to shelter in place, to shelter right there. And ICE detains a Marine Corps veteran's wife who was still breastfeeding their baby, and that took place in looks like Louisiana. So Marine Corps veteran Adrian Clotre doesn't know how to tell his children where their mother went after U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers detained her last month. So definitely that's something folks are paying attention to as well. And a suicide bomber attack on church in Syria kills at least 20 people. So that's something that's going on. And Tesla Robotaxi had a low key launch in Texas. So maybe you'll be going out and getting a Robotaxi if you're one of those folks that have to get around and get a taxi and all along those lines. And another story is the National Hurricane Center monitoring system that could develop into the season's first storm. So it looks like they're monitoring a system that could be the first storm in the whole hurricane season, which we're in the midst of now. And a potent heat dome is building over the U.S., sending temperatures into the triple digits. I think at one point they were saying we might get it up to 100 degrees, but right now I think they're saying 98 here in North Carolina. Either way, it's hot. That's all I can say, and all along those lines. And they're saying that tarnished by October 7th, Netanyahu's legacy may be reshaped by the war with Iran. So definitely that is something that being talked about as well. And Trump aides once helped elect Netanyahu, reflecting the leader's deep ties and all along those lines. So definitely that's some of just the news that is going on. And definitely, I know a lot of folks are still talking about sports as well because we had two champions crowned in the world of sports In the world of college baseball and the College World Series, LSU beat Coastal Carolina. The Chancellors, I think is what they're called. Maybe I'll bring Rick in because I called Jacoby. I'm still trying to figure out what a chancellor is and all along those lines, because usually they have some sort of significance and all in that space. But it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about that. And then in basketball, the Oklahoma Thunder beat the Indiana Pacers, and of course the Pacers star went down early with a severe injury, but they did give a valiant fight, and it was definitely a valiant fight in terms of trying to get back and all along those lines. And in sad news, the founder of FedEx, Fred Smith, died at the age of 80. So if you're getting your things through FedEx and all along those lines, the person that put that together has passed away at the age of 80. But I'll bring in Rick Rosner. Maybe he's found out what a chancellor is, and maybe he's got some other news for me. And I've got John, and we'll see who else joins us as well. John from Canada. But
so I think a chanticleer is some kind of rooster.
Okay, and that would make sense, but it doesn't really make sense because it's a coastal town and it's a coastal baseball town because it's called Coastal Carolina. So I'm pretty sure they're over there by.
I'm looking at their mascot, and it's a guy in looking like some kind of bird suit.
Okay,
but I wanted OKC won Game 7 of the end of the NBA finals, which is appropriate because the amount of uranium to make a bomb would easily fit within a basketball.
Okay.
So the question is, could you hide a basketball in Iran, which is the size of Texas? So you're hoping that the bombs that Trump dropped on Iran somehow managed to find a basketball-sized hunk of metal in a place, the size of Texas. That's 1,400 miles from southeast to northwest.
The odds of that seem very long, but maybe they know something that I don't know, because I know they've also claimed that they have found targets, like people targets, in the past and everything hunkered down and buried and everything like that. I remember, I think it was Assam or one of the other ones that we claimed to have found and assassinated and everything like that. So definitely, maybe they did find it, but that does sound like the odds of that are very low in my mind.
Well, the other question is whether they have uranium enriched to the point where it's exploding. Because you spin down uranium. I think regular uranium is probably like less than 1% exploded uranium, and you spin it down until you get 60%. And 60% you use in a nuclear reactor. And then to turn that into bomb uranium, you got to further concentrate it from 60% to 90%. And one question is whether Iran has been doing that, spinning it down further.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And whether we managed to knock out, they have thousands of centrifuges where you do the spinning. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like churning butter, where you churn butter until the cream rises to the top. That's what you do in a centrifuge. And you've got thousands of these machines that take the creamier, lighter uranium, which is the more exploded uranium.
Yeah, that definitely something that could be the case and everything like that. The other thing that I brought up, and I don't know your thoughts around this, I know I'm way past the notion, well, then again, you never can tell with the Trump administration and other administrations, but what is our thought? Because it would be an issue for my nephews who are about to be 16 and 17 next month and everything like that. But are we heading toward a draft, and is that a good or a bad thing? Because that was a news story that I did see, where I guess there is some talk about possibly bringing back the draft.
That would be a bad thing for us to be enmeshed in another Mideast war. That, the last time we went into the Mideast for the Iraq war, it didn't go well for anybody. Iraq lost more than 500,000 people to the subsequent civil war after we went in and took out Saddam. And we messed a little with Libya, and Libya fell, and it's now a failed state that were a lot. And so, our involvement in the Mideast has not usually uh, ended with a clear and positive result.
Well, speaking of failed in messages, I just saw this quote. It was put in the Guardian and everything like that. But apparently, J.D. Vance, the current vice president, is claiming that the U.S. is at war with Iran's nuclear program, not Iran. How does that make any sense and anything like those lines? Because,
It frickin' doesn't. But let's hear what John has to say.
yes, John.
Yeah, I thought it was on mute. Yeah, disappointed. I'm here mostly to fact check whatever Nick says in terms of his claims.
I got you. He's not here yet, but he may pop in later. 'Cause I
Yeah,
know he's got
maybe he's hiding in the background, and because I'm interested in always fact checking his very many dubious claims. I'll continue.
And also, Nick doesn't believe everything Nick says. Nick says a lot of stuff to try to get everybody yelling at each other because he thinks semi-correctly that makes for more interesting TV, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not interested in entertaining him, or if he's using this to generate more. That makes me think he's a totally not serious person and someone that I don't really want to. But I'm gonna assume that what he says he believes. I think he believes all the trans stuff that he posts, because for a while he was doing that. He's kind of stopped doing that. Yeah. So as far as
his actions belie his words. Like, he can get on here and talk about how Trump is awesome, yet Nick put his money not where his mouth is. He got the hell out of the U.S. and moved to Spain because he didn't like what's going on here.
He ran away and everything like that. By the way, I just saw that North Carolina last week was going to receive $145 million in a Purdue opioid settlement, according to our local AG Attorney General. So I guess some people that are getting Oxycontin will be getting some money and all along those lines, because I think it has to do with that particular drug.
Yeah, as well. I mean, Purdue, the people behind Purdue, the Sackler family, got off pretty much scot-free. They managed to hold on to hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions, in the fortune that they made from killing, like 100,000 Americans every year for the past 20 years. They killed a ton of people. I mean, if you do the math, it's more people than COVID killed, more people than AIDS killed. And those guys, and they killed people by lying. If you've seen any of the dramatizations of the Sackler story, they came up with a very effective painkiller, OxyContin. And if you take it, but then they lied and said it wasn't addictive. And it's totally addictive because it makes you feel great. And it's you take it a few times, and a lot of people, just cannot stop taking it. And for a decade more, the Sacklers lied and said this is totally not addictive, and leading to the death of 100,000 Americans every year for year after year.
Well, maybe this will bring Nick out as well, because there is, I know we have the show that'll be on later on today that deals with timeshares, but there are other companies that are very popular in terms of where people can stay and all along those lines. And one of them is Airbnbs. I know some people that have definitely been involved in Airbnbs and everything, but apparently the Spanish government has mandated the removal of nearly 66,000 Airbnb listings to address a severe housing crisis. So the listings were found to be non-compliant with regulations, lacking proper license, or containing invalid numbers. So the decision comes amid growing public concern surrounding Spain's housing affordability. So Spain's Consumer Affairs Minister Pablo Bastende noted that an investigation identified over 65,000 listings that did not meet legal standards, and following a Madrid High Court ruling, the government has required Airbnb to remove an initial batch of 5,800 listings with further removals to come. Busting Day stated the initiative aimed to ensure that no economic interest takes precedence over the right to housing, because they're apparently big on fair housing there in Spain. And Barcelona aims to become the first European city to eliminate licenses for vacation rentals, requiring property owners to convert them to long-term rentals by 2028 or sell their properties. And that's what Mayor Jaume Colbany strongly backed the efforts in that particular area. And
LA has not canceled Airbnbs, but LA and other cities, San Francisco, like they face issues, the same kind of issues that rich companies and rich people stockpile homes either to sell them when the market's stronger, and in the meantime turn them into Airbnbs. So there's a major housing shortage in California, where the average sale price of a house is $1 million, and most people can't afford that. So Spain is taking action.
The average sales price is how much?
$1 million in California, I believe. Let's see. Maybe it's just in. So let me double check that.
Let me double check that. What was the final, John? While we're waiting, maybe Nick will pop in, or maybe he's ducking you and everything. What was the final results of the G7 conference and all along?
No. Average price of a home in California is $787,500. So with Los Angeles, it's got to be $1 million.
Oh, we've got Nick right here and everything. Hey, Nick, we were just talking about you because apparently, and Steve has joined us as well, but apparently your new home state or the home country is going after Airbnbs. So that's what I was just talking about. Y'all are going big time after Airbnbs and are shutting quite a few of them down in Spain. So how are you doing, Nick? What do you think about this Airbnb shutdown?
So what's the question?
Should it be shutting them down? What's going on in Spain? Y'all apparently got the big housing thing going on, and y'all decided to shut down.
Yeah, they're shutting them down. Too many turistas. But Steve has joined us. Let's bring in Steve. I got to fix some power.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm at the car place, so couldn't find my headsets, but taking the morning to get my car serviced, getting ready for a hot day. And the main issues today is obviously the Trump-Iran situation, looking at possibly asking for a regime change. We don't know whether there's going to be any pushback or fallout from this. You always get worried about retaliatory responses. There was an election in Japan where the liberals, I think, did pretty well. I just got back from Japan. Inflation is high. And it's just a busy summer. Tomorrow marks the anniversary of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So we'll probably see a lot of protests and activity there. I'm going to be doing a message on it tomorrow. And, it's just a changing time. I mean, I really think that the Democrats are going to have a good go of it here in the midterm elections. And we'll see what happens. And our governor is having to work with the Trump administration on disaster relief. They haven't passed a budget yet, but things are going pretty quick, pretty fast. And it's a lot. Dan, is the basketball NBA over? I fell asleep.
Yeah, it's over. It was the final game. We were just talking about that. Oklahoma Thunder
Did they win?
won. Oklahoma Thunder won.
Okay, fantastic.
The Thunder won.
I
Tyrese
didn't
got
follow
hurt
those teams
in
very well. So. And Wimbledon starts soon, I think.
Yeah, they were a small market team, so that's what even the commissioner of the NBA said was a good thing, because they were small markets and it opened it up to a different type market. A lot of times people are looking for the New Yorks, LAs, and the bigger markets. But yeah, both of these are small markets, so they're seeing this as a sign of parity. I did not realize, even though I probably should have, because I am a follower of the NBA, that there have been 7 different teams that have been champions in the last 7 years. So there has not been a repeat, and we've had 7 different teams that have won.
Yeah, the Western Division has been like ridiculously competitive. Like I think 6 teams finished in the playoffs with the same final record of I don't know, like 49 and 33 or something, and somewhere around there. They all finished with the same record.
And we
And
got pro tennis. We got pro tennis coming into Cary next week. I'm sponsoring a tournament and getting ready for Wimbledon. I think starts next week. I think, right? So get out the strawberries and cream, and let's see if Alcaraz can repeat from the French. I have been so busy. I still haven't seen Coco Gauff's final, and I never even once I DVR something, I still haven't watched the French Open final with the commentary. So I might do that in July when I'm off for one day, just to watch that to miss the commentary. But I saw that was a great match, and so I'm going to chime out. I'll be back at 11 briefly for Economics Monday. But it's great to see you guys. A lot going on in the world. Hopefully, be on a little bit longer tomorrow. Actually, Wednesday, because I got to work tomorrow, and politics is so stressful. Going to work is like a vacation. I mean, when you go to work to relax, that's when you know you're having a problem.
That's a good point. You're going to work to
I go
relax
to work.
and
I
instead
go
of
to work
going
to
to work
relax
to do all this work.
because you love what you do and you get
Wow.
paid.
How is the heat impacting? And
It's-
before you go, how is the heat impacting your work? Because I know a lot of people are suffering from the heat.
It's really
including
hot.
actors.
I was going to go for a run this morning and I wasn't able to, and I guess it's not going to happen today. It's about 101. Sometimes I go on heat runs though, and I protect myself. And boy, you feel so good when you come back. It's like running in a sauna for like 45 minutes, and then I just have a cold Coke, put some ice cream in it, take a 20-minute nap, and I feel completely rejuvenated as long as you hydrate. But it's really hot out there, and we're supposed to do a photo shoot for our campaign on Thursday, and it's just so hot we might have to reschedule. But anyway, I'll be back on Wednesday. I'm going to try to call in on Economics Monday. It's just a little noisy here. People working around me. I don't want to be distracting, but it's great to see everyone on World Edition. I'm glad I could chime in and giving you some things to talk about. But I think the main thing is U.S. foreign policy. What does this action by Trump mean? What are the repercussions going to be in the Middle East with Israel and Iran? How is Israel going to respond, and what's it going to do to just our stance in the world? Do we need another war right now, given where we are? And you just kind of see this being almost like the Iraq War, that we get pulled into something now with Iran. But at the same time, I don't think it's safe for them to have nuclear weapons. And I don't think we should be negotiating with countries or governments that are supporting and promoting terrorism. Of course, that does not mean the people of Iran are terrorists. And there's a lot of great Iranians I meet in the U.S. It's so sad their country has been, torn for so many years. And, we'll see what happens. But Donald Trump is continuing to keep us all very busy in the news business.
And Iraq was one thing. Iraq is a much smaller country. Iran is huge. It's 92 million people. It's the size of Texas. They've got a big military. They've got a lot of money to spend on messing with the world. They financed a lot of terror organizations, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. We don't want to be in a full-on war against a country with 92 million people.
Yeah,
Definitely don't want to be.
I agree.
Definitely want to be in.
I'll be back in a few minutes, guys. I appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing David Walker, and I'll be trying to be on the whole hour on Wednesday. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hey, Rick, I was looking up this unusual article and everything, because sometimes even on the World Edition, we like to find unusual things, and it hasn't come up for Trump yet and all along those lines, but apparently there were certain foods that the presidents did not like and everything like that. So I don't know, maybe Trump has a food that he doesn't like, but apparently when Bush was in office, he literally had a broccoli ban. So he had a ban on broccoli, and then even Nixon had a ban on soup. So I don't know what maybe Trump doesn't like.
All right. So, I don't mind that, where the president decides, I'm the most powerful person in the world. If I don't want to eat broccoli, nobody better serve me broccoli. Or Nixon with soup. Where it gets dicey is when the president decides, I'm the most powerful guy in the world, I should be able to have an affair with an intern. Right. Because so much of the 21st century terrible politics of now goes back to Clinton being unable to keep it in his pants. Clinton's affair led to Gore not using him to help him campaign for president. Then Gore loses narrowly. Then Bush becomes president. Then we have 9/11. Then we go into Iraq, and the whole.
But Rick, can we really put that just on Clinton and everything? I mean,
No,
many people thought that Kennedy had affairs, possibly even with Marilyn Monroe. And I remember, hold on a second, because I remember even, I think it was an affair, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But what was the issue with, and I don't even know if he's still living, but I remember when I was working at a newspaper, there was issues around Gary Hart, and I thought that had something to do with
Gary Hart is thought to be, he's thought of as the first politician where the press decided to publicize what it knew about his affair with, I think, Donna Hart aboard a little ship called the Monkey Business. Right. So until like back in the 60s, like JFK had a room where he'd have sex with people in the basement of the White House, a secret butler's quarters where he'd go down and have really quick bad sex with women because he had a bad back. And he really couldn't do much of a sexual performance. So it would be over really quickly, and the woman wasn't satisfied, but she got to sleep with the president, which was, pretty awesome. But the press knew about a lot of this. They didn't talk about it. And
but the flip side, hold on a second, isn't the flip side of that you've got a president now that back in his first term, I think it was, literally said that he could grab a woman by her the nickname for a female body part that also is associated with a cat and all along those lines. And it didn't seem to cause any problems. As a matter of fact, some people would say that because we're talking about teenage contestants, that it could even be in that whole category.
That's right. So I didn't want Trump to be president. And when that came out, that tape where he talked about being able to grab women by the pussy because you're a star, and when you're a star, they let you do it. No, they don't let you do it. You do it, and then the women, they maybe file sexual assault charges against you. But I was excited that it came out. I go, this loses the election for him. We were we were at Best Buy getting a TV for my mother-in-law, and I'm telling the sales guy, my wife is like, shut up, he doesn't care about, but no, it didn't make a difference. The Trump base doesn't care that he is our rapiest president.
What is it about that base that they are so loyal? Because I know, there was a loyal base to Jesse Helms, and there was a loyal base to Wallace down there in Alabama and everything like that. But what it is about his base that is so loyal and so
I call it the sportification of politics, where every year they're in the NFL, sometimes the NBA, there's some players who are known to play super aggressive and who, have a reputation for hurting players on the opposing team. Right now, there's like this thing in the WNBA between, I think, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, where they seem to take each other out with hard hits. But I don't think anybody thinks either of them is a dick. But sometimes the assassins in the NFL or the NHL, the headhunters who, really want to, those people are dicks, but you love them if they're on your side. And it's the same thing with politics now, where Trump, everybody knows that Trump is, one of the biggest dicks to ever be president, certainly the biggest dick in our lifetime. But if you're on his team, if you're Team Trump, then you kind of love it, him being a dick. Jacoby, who knows sports better than I do, can maybe talk about it.
Yeah, Jacoby, just really quickly, and I know it was a pivot away from the news and all along those lines, but I was watching some of the commentary, and Oklahoma Thunder did win, and their star did a great job, and all along those lines. But with the injury early in the game, I guess some people are thinking that it is a tarnished win and everything like that. But what is your take on that? Because like I said, he did go down, meaning Tyler, very early in the game, but it did look like even despite the valiant efforts from the Pacers that they couldn't weather that defensive storm from the Oklahoma Thunder in the third quarter and definitely the fourth quarter, even though the coach of the Pacers did say they won the fourth quarter, even if they only won by a point.
So injuries happen in games. Injuries happen. Because if you look at the run that, matter of fact, Indiana went through, for example, with Boston didn't have Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum had the same injury Tyrese Halliburton had. Milwaukee didn't have Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard had the same injury that Tyrese Halliburton had. So injuries happen, and it's sad because Tyrese, the big thing with Tyrese Halliburton this whole year is because he got voted as the most overrated player by the actual players of the NBA. So he was out to prove a point. And he actually played extremely well. I think Tyrese Halliburton is a superstar or one of the newer superstars that's out there. He's just unorthodox as how the way he plays the game from, the way he shoots and, his game is different from your typical superstar. He's not going to wow you so much with dunking over people and doing some defensive plays that are unimaginable. He's just a good player. He's a really, really solid, unorthodox player. When he went down at the beginning of that game, yes, it was sad that it happened. Injuries happened, and people are going to feel robbed from what could have been. But statistically speaking, I had picked OKC in 6. I think that last game that they had in game 6, it was just the normal way their series have been playing out. The same way they played out in Denver, the same way they played out in Minnesota. They don't lose back-to-back games. They hadn't lost a back-to-back game this whole year. They have 84 wins. That is top 5, if I remember, in terms of wins in a season. And actually, to win the whole thing, they were the best team from start to finish. SGA was the best player from start to finish. He averaged more points per game than Michael Jordan did in the playoffs. Yeah. So he was a dominant player. And what had happened again? Yeah, people are going to say, "Well, Halliburton could have made it, and they could have won," but they hadn't won back-to-back. They hadn't won back-to-back games against OKC, and OKC hadn't lost back-to-back games the whole season.
Well, speaking of not losing back-to-back games,
OKC, I think was going to win the game regardless. It could have been closer, right? But I think OKC was going to win that regardless.
No, I think you're probably right. They probably would have won the game and everything like that. But speaking of the worst time to have that record broken, and I alluded to it earlier, and I did watch the first couple of innings of the game, and then it looked like it got out of hand. But apparently Coastal Carolina had never lost back-to-back games the entire College World Series, but then they lost back-to-back games, which caused them to lose the College World Series because you are playing a 2-out-of-3 series. So they picked the worst time to lose back-to-back games, even though they had not done it all season long. So they were very strong.
Yeah, that was a tough loss, and there were some controversial calls in that whole thing. So I think once the controversial calls happened at the beginning of the actual game, that took the air out of Coastal Carolina, and they were upset from that point on. Just to touch on the Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark thing, people are just now getting into the WNBA. People don't understand or know about the WNBA. Caitlin Clark brought a ton of eyeballs in, and Caitlin Clark brought a whole bunch of people in to seeing the WNBA. But people like that are your fair weather fans, and they're just now getting into it. It's a great thing, but you're still your fair weather fans because if Caitlin Clark's not there, you're not enjoying the actual WNBA. And you don't understand that the WNBA has always been physical. Ask Cheryl Swoops, ask Cheryl Miller, ask all the old
Toby, are you talking about the WNBA or the WWE? Because the last time I
WNBA.
I saw women's basketball, they're all getting to fights every day.
The WNBA is like the 80s of the NBA. The 80s in the NBA, there were fights with the Bad Boy Pistons and the Bulls and stuff like that. But again, people now coming to the WNBA and seeing it for the first time don't realize the physicality in there. And
But physicality, they fight each other all the time.
no, they don't. There's physical play in basketball, and they play
Elbows to the head.
Yeah, they do the same. They did the same
Hands
thing with
to
the
the back.
Pistons.
So now
The problem is that, again, getting used to the physicality
It's like hockey.
of the WNBA. What happens is people see or have this idea that women are this dainty and all pretty and can't touch. That's not what these women are. They are professional athletes that play with physicality. They are amazing at what they do. Caitlin Clark isn't the best player in the WNBA, but because she brought so many fans and those rabid fans want her to be so badly, they have made a villain out of Angel Reese. They don't look at the fact that Caitlin Clark is a dirty player at times, very dirty player at times, but they overlook those things and the junk talk that she does, but only attack people who talk junk to her and stuff like that. It's just, people are just getting used to it. I'm hoping to die down after a while because there are a ton of fabulous players coming in right now. Paige Beckers is phenomenal. She's put up the most points in 10 games by a rookie. So she's already beaten Caitlin Clark's numbers starting out. So you're looking at next year, you're going to have Juju Watkins that's going to drop into the WNBA. She is a freaking beast. She was the best player in the college basketball game this year as a sophomore, and she got injured. And so watching her come out, and all the other players are out there, like Aaliyah Boston, who plays with Caitlin Clark, gets overlooked because she plays with Caitlin Clark, and people say, "Oh well, Caitlin Clark." Well, you still got other players that are on that team. And
so I got a couple of things. One is now is the time to start following the because this is the crappiest time of year for sports. Hockey over, NBA over. The Major League Baseball still has half the season, so many months to go. It's kind of the doldrums. So you need the WNBA to follow. Plus, in they only have a 32-game season, so every game means something. And you might look at the scores of the WNBA and say, well, the scores are lower than the NBA. They must not play as well. No, it's because a WNBA game is only 40 minutes, 4 10-minute quarters compared to 48 minutes for an NBA game. So it's also a great thing to watch because you don't have to spend 3 hours. It's over sooner.
And also to touch on what the WNBA is, I mean, there are other sports out there. Like Major League Cricket is just kicking up, and if you're into international sports, cricket's awesome. And baseball is, if you're into baseball's awesome. As a casual fan, it's a fun game to get into because now a lot of teams are starting to do some neat things. Home Run Derby X is a new way to look at the home run derby, and it's freaking awesome. But WNBA, if you like basketball, if you are into basketball, that is what the WNBA is. And that was the beauty of the actual finals for the NBA this year. It was refreshing to see and feel like it was college basketball because the youth that was there was no big star just dominating. Oh, well, this, that. No, you had Pascal Siakam going off. You had Jalen Williams. You had all these players that you're just having to watch because it's like the college game. They were moving the ball. They were shooting the ball. And like the WNBA, that's what you do. You move, you shoot, you play physical. You don't let somebody come into the lane and get an easy layup. No, you play physical. You shut them down. That's the age.
Jacoby, just really quickly along those same lines, I think I heard somebody say that the now champion Oklahoma Thunder was well put together, and they didn't really have any dominant stars and everything because I think they were mostly undrafted and second round picks. So we have the draft coming up in Wednesday. So if there are people that are looking to be in the second round or maybe even undrafted, that is one of the things about this particular team and even the Pacers as well, because the backup guards, I didn't know that much about them, but that young guard, TJ McConnell, I believe is his name and everything, for Indiana, he was a beast because he was like just going in there and totally surprising people, I think, with his energy when he would come in to replace Tyler and just be the second wave, because sometimes you'll have waves of players coming in. But yeah, he was definitely a great player. I gained a great deal of respect for him in that series.
Yeah, I mean, so both teams are young. Well, OKC is really young. It's one of the youngest teams in the NBA right now. One of the youngest teams ever to win a championship. I think it's the second youngest team, if I remember, because they put up, I think it was in the, 76?
Yeah, it was the Bill Walton team with Big Red.
And so they were the second youngest team to win the championship. They are if they stay together, because if Caruso stays, because Caruso was their defender, their go-to defender that was really like the catalyst to help shut people down. If they stay together, and Chet Holmgren is going to only get better. Chet is a great player. He was great in college, but then had the injury earlier this year, and he's still coming back from the hip injury because he broke his hip bone. So now he's still coming back, getting back into his ways. They're all going to be better next year. The backup center, forgot his name right now, but he was evidently in the G League and actually was the MVP of the G League. So they have a very youthful, dominant team that can actually repeat.
Definitely a useful team. I did have a question. I was going to come back to Nick and everything along those lines, get back to politics and everything, because I know Sasha has brought it up, and this might be one of those controversial topics that gets both of you and John into a deep conversation and everything. But are we going to have a draft? Because like I said, I got 2 nephews and everything. And what do you think? Should we have a draft and everything like that, Nick? Because definitely that is a conversation going around because of
absolutely. We're going to get back to the draft. We're going to draft 1 million more soldiers so that we can take over more countries, make Canada the 51st state, take over Greenland, grab Panama while we're at it, and continue forward, as they say, make America great again.
Well, apparently he wants to make Iran great again as well, because he made it.
Hold on. So the last time we had a draft was going into World War II, and that draft lasted all the way almost to 1970. But I think it'll take a major conflict, major aggression against us to bring back the draft. I'm not sure that Iran committing acts of terrorism against us, if they do, will be enough to bring back the draft. But I have one more sport to watch, which is cheerleading. There's a new season of America's Sweethearts, the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, on Netflix. And I watched the whole thing because it is crazy, the mental and physical toll that it takes on these girls. Like one girl had to get girls have to get hip replacement after being Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders for a couple of years. It's an insane sport, and the show showing the insane craziness that goes into being a freaking cheerleader. It's a great show. It's a great series.
I haven't checked that series out. You have to tell me about it.
I mean, I'll Rick, yeah, cheerleading's tough.
These were girls who were like college champion cheerleaders, and then they go to Dallas, and it's even tougher there, where they do these moves that destroy your hip. You jump up in the air, and then you spread your legs, and you land on your butt, basically. And this will wreck a couple of years of that, and you're hobbling around. And it's a crazy show, because you have to be super competitive. You have to be super precise. You have to be super sexy, because you're wearing a tiny uniform that barely has room for your butt to not fall out of your shorts. And you have to be wholesome and churchy. And the whole thing is so...
Wait a minute. You just said the Dallas cheerleaders. The Dallas cheerleaders were never wholesome and churchy.
But they are. The girls themselves are the most wholesome freaking girls. Yeah, their boobs are out. Yeah, their butts are shaking. But as individuals, they expect the girls to be completely upstanding. The team captains have to hold full-time jobs, not cheerleading. and the job doesn't pay anything, so they have to hold full-time jobs anyway. And they have, when they're not cheerleading, they're out visiting hospitals and doing all sorts of charity. And the pressure they're under is like that of any professional athlete. And so anyway, it's a good show.
Okay. I'll definitely check it out and everything. And it's always good when you got things like that. I was just reading an article, I think I sent it to Toby, about a gentleman that was a singer that had gone to the Apollo, and not with the Apollo show that I'm part of, but way back when and everything, because he was performing for a group that performed for the open for Gladys Knight and the Pips and everything like that. And now he is in one of our local hospitals over at Wake Med, and he is singing to a lot of the patients to give them some hope as they are fighting through the different ailments and all along those lines. So it was a very touching story to read about that gentleman who is still singing and bringing joy to people as a part of their healing process. So I think I sent that to you, Toby, but if not, I know I meant to. But yeah, there's a lot going on in the world that a lot of people are paying attention to, including this notion of a draft and everything like that. How serious do we think this U.S. involvement in the Iran war is? I mean, we did bomb them and everything like that. So how much are you, gentlemen, fearful of a terrorism attack and everything like that? Because we've had terrorism attacks before, but how fearful are you of this notion of a terrorism attack on the states based on the fact that we just bombed them? Anybody?
Yeah. There's John who wants to respond.
Yeah. So in listening to Nick comments and rhetoric, I'm not sure if I want to continue with, it's really hard for me to take him seriously. I'm wasting my time fact checking and trying to argue with someone who's a friggin', whether he purposely just says things without him believing any of it. So if the purpose for him to do these calls is to just grow the, and make people, I guess, want to talk about things, I'm wasting my time. I try not to waste my time with people that aren't serious. If he really believes everything he says, wanting Canada to be the 51st state, I'm sorry. My life is, I'm a certain age that there's no point in me having these conversations with people that either do it for entertainment and or for money. I have no interest. I really don't.
So the draft, the last time we had a draft began 1940. It ran until 1973. However, upon turning 18, every male in the United States is required to register with the Selective Service System to make themselves known to the system in case there is a draft. The way the draft worked last time during the Vietnam War era was they had a bingo ball hopper, right, with 365 either somethings, maybe ping pong balls, I don't know. Each ball had a date of the year, like January 7th on it. And they picked all the balls out in order, until they had picked all 365 or 66, I guess, with leap year. And then they started with the first, when they picked people for the military, they picked people whose balls got picked first. And so if you were in the first, say, 50 balls that came out of the hopper, you were in danger of being drafted to go to Vietnam. If you were 350th out of the hopper, you didn't have much danger. And this was a system that 50,000 kids died, U.S. troops, average age 19, died in Vietnam. And it became a source of national rage and unrest. If you were in college, you were exempted from the draft. This pissed people off. So, in the Civil War, you could pay, they had a draft, You could pay for somebody else to go to war if you have money instead of you, which led to riots. So it's always been an angering, contentious system.
Just a last point. I'm not going to come to these calls anymore. Like I said, I'm wasting my time. If and when Nick wants to have serious conversations, please invite me back. I'm more than happy to, in good faith, have discussions with the Nicks of the world. I'm always open to that until he's serious.
I mean, there are some people that come on the network that are very serious about their views. I think, like Jacoby said, some of what Nick says he is serious about and has serious beliefs about those things. Some of them he does to bait people like you and to have conversations. I think he does the same thing on social media and everything. Now, there are some people on this network, the Gretchens of the world and others, that are seriously MAGA folks. So if your purpose is to try to find out why MAGA people are MAGA people, and if you can change them, I don't think you'll ever change Gretchen's mind, but you can actually have those conversations when she's invited, because I think that she is one of those people that you're talking about that is more seriously committed to her viewpoints and has those viewpoints for whatever reason she has those viewpoints.
I took Nick as a somewhat intelligent person. I'll still say he is having these conversations, but it has to be in good faith. It has to be serious. If he's doing this for money or entertainment value or rile up the liberals, which I'm not, I have no interest. So if that, if he changes in that way where he is, speaking and having these conversations in good faith, I'm more than happy to come back. If that happens, please invite me. Until that happens, no, I have no interest. I'm going to sign off. I'll let Rick say.
All right. Nice to have you here for while you were here. To get back to the draft, there's also been a change in public spiritedness among Americans. So looking at the article from Wikipedia, in 1940, the U.S. wasn't at war yet, but Europe was at war. And 71% of Americans supported the immediate adoption of compulsory military training for all young men. Then in the middle of the war, 1942, everybody was, a majority of Americans were still in 69% favored compulsory military training. And to imagine that you would get that high a percentage of Americans willing, 10 million Americans were inducted into the military in World War II. Back when we only had 150 million Americans in the country, it would be like inducting 24 million Americans now. And Americans will not put up with that right now, that we're more selfish. 400,000 Americans died in World War II. And it took 4 years out of millions of Americans' lives. And I don't think you can get Americans to sign up for that kind of sacrifice.
Yeah, Rick, just really quickly, how serious do you think, and I'm asking this question based on a conversation I had with my own dad when he was sharing a story with my nephews and everything along those lines, but how serious do you think people are in terms of their convictions and everything like that? Because I remember my dad sharing on his birthday on this past Friday a story of when he went to NC State, and it was the time of segregation, so he won some tickets and he tried to go to a particular movie theater that was segregated at the time. So he gathered 10 of his friends that were white, 10 of his friends that were black, and tried to get into the movie theater. And of course, the white kids got in, the black kids did not. And then they wound up being a little bit of a movement and everything. But even he, as he was telling the story to my nephews, said he was not in the position as a young teenager to be trying to lead a movement at that time. I think they brought in one of our local churches. It might have been local YMCAs. It might have even been Hayes or Chavis, one of the ones that still exist to try to be the mediators. But even he, in telling this story to my nephews and the rest of us that were there, was saying we were no position to be in a movement and everything. So how much do you think people are committed to these?
So, all right. So there are issues, right? If you were a Black American during the Civil Rights era, it definitely affected you. If you were a young male American during the Vietnam era, your life was definitely on the line.
Right.
Now we're arguing about frickin' whether Iran has nukes or not.
Right.
And people can, the Twitter is making fun of how all the MAGAs have shifted from Trump. He kept us out of war to Trump. He had to do what he had to do. It's it's a country that's 10,000 miles away. It's
but you even got some MAGAs that are backing off and everything, because even the what do you call them? The Megan, I'm trying to think. The Marjorie Taylor Greens are saying that they did not support this war effort and everything like that. As a matter of fact, they said that it might fracture the MAGA movement.
Right, but the deal is that it's a more remote issue. It's not like the draft. It's not like civil rights. It doesn't have the immediacy that those issues had. So people are better able to bullshit about it.
Yeah. Speaking of bullshit, and then we get ready to wrap up and everything along those lines. But what is your thoughts about, we're going to get ready to come up on hurricane season and all along those lines. So what is our thoughts about the preparation and whether we're prepared for a major hurricane? Because like I said, some of the things that are being cut are things that usually would monitor the hurricanes and all along those lines, and not the hurricanes, the soccer team, but the actual hurricanes. But what is our thoughts around this notion of preparedness as we are getting ready to come into hurricane season and even tornado season? So it's going to be storm season around the country.
Well, the deal with you can prepare a little bit. If you know that a hurricane's barreling down, you can go to Home Depot and buy plywood and board up your windows. But it's that's about, you can lay in some food and some water, or you can evacuate. But there's not that much you can do to defend against it. It's more what the government will do for you after. And Trump has been, dismantling FEMA and saying F you to red states and blue states. He was that. So,
well, Rick, just remember.
I will say this: prepare for a hurricane, because then you will be prepared for any attacks on our country, because we do have 54 nuclear plant facilities. I was taught about all of this when I co-opted with them many years ago, and I attend world leaders meetings where we do sit and discuss nuclear power plants, whether they're activated or deactivated. But missiles have been aimed at them for years, as well as our main communications. And if any other country who hates us decides, you know what, we're just going to shoot off the missiles now, we are one big ticking nuclear bomb waiting to happen. Make sure that you're at least 10 miles away from it. That's where the most damage will happen. I mean, damage, that means where everything's obliterated. After that, it's going to be burns and horrific pain. But stock up, because either way, I think you're going to be prepared for
if you want to defend against terrorism, be cautious about when you fly, because if you look historically over the past 50 years at what kind of terrorism was done when you pissed off a country, it was taking down a plane.
Yeah. How far away?
What happened was very unprovoked. It was very preventable and unnecessary. And in my mind, anyone who voted for him and anyone who's cheering this on, they need to enlist, and they need to be first in the front line of any war that we are in. I think all MAGA should have to enlist, because this blood is on their hands. And this isn't I told you so anymore. This is we need to bend over and start preparing for the worst case scenario, whether it is a hurricane or a terrorist attack back on our soil, or both. But what I do have to say is I've unraveled a few laws that will hopefully stop ICE And we are working on some of that. I've sent that to some people today. But think about what has just happened. But also ask yourself one question. Normally, things like this are done to distract you. And the worse distraction they create, the worse that's going on behind scenes. So what could be happening behind scenes with a distraction like this? Is it the big bill?
Beautiful bill, the budget bill. Yeah, that's
right.
Terrible for
so the war is used to distract us. That's what I believe. So anyway, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you for watching us. We'll pick this conversation up tomorrow. Everyone have a blessed day. Take care and go stock up and be prepared. But save some toilet paper out there for us because we're going to need it with all this BS that goes on. Bye.